So how are you all?
Doing great.
You're still here? You're not on spring break? What's the deal?
Exams tomorrow.
Who would do that?
Zephyrin.
I'll have you know, I would never use it. I might.
Appreciate it, please. Thank you.
Hey, for those of you who don't know, I'm Jerry Williams, and I'm a professor of sociology in the department. And in the last 7 years, I haven't taught a whole lot because I've been a chair. So I was the chair of this department for 6 years, and I've chaired the Department of English, and I've chaired the Department of Psychology. So I've been around a little bit. And so now I'm back teaching full-time in the department and doing other things too. But one of the things I'm doing is coordinating internships for sociology majors. So I want to talk a little bit about the process, but before that, I want to just say a little bit about why I think they're important. Does that sound reasonable? Before I became a sociologist, I had a life, and I actually owned a large insurance agency, auto insurance, commercial, all sorts of things. I've done a number of different things, including being a social worker. I was a social worker in a mental health agency. This is to say I've done a number of sort of different things in the, quote, real world outside of academia. So when I came to be a college professor, it came with a significant amount of other experiences. And so experiences where, people come from different backgrounds, with different degrees and so on and so forth. But there was something that was really common about all of those experiences in the business world, is that the positions were more about people and relationships than they were about degrees, right? Degrees, there was a time in American history, say in the 50s, in the post-war years, 50s and 60s, where if you had a degree, you pretty much made your case. You didn't have to worry about much, right? You just graduated from college and you decided among many different jobs what job you would have. Well, it hasn't been that way for a long time. And it's particularly not that way now. So to be successful in the post-college years, you have to make your own case, right? Your degree alone is not going to be enough to make that case. Now, some professions, for example, my youngest daughter is graduating with a doctorate in pharmacy in a few months. Obviously, that job is pretty clear-cut. She's going to be a pharmacist. In fact, she already has a job. And so, but most jobs today aren't like that, right? You're going to graduate, and you're going to need a job, I assume, and want a job. And you're going to have to be able to make your case for a job. Why are you a compelling person for whatever job it is you're interested in, right? And so the one way that you make that case about whether you're a compelling person or not is by having a little bit of sort of interesting experience. And so internships are one way to do that. So that's certainly one function of an internship. I have 5 kids and 8 grandchildren. I understand this completely. So you need to be able to make your case when you graduate, and you need to do it. One way you can do it is with an internship. And so this program, as you'll see when you get a chance to look through this, we very much value internships. And essentially what you will do, if or when you choose to have an internship, is during a long semester you will work about 150 hours, which is about 10 hours a week. And so these will be volunteer hours, and we have a variety of different settings. And what I try to do is visit with you and find out what you're interested in, right? Because it's always best to do something you're interested in. And so, what you're, based upon what your career plans are, or hopes are. And so, based on that, we'll try to find you an internship placement, either locally or perhaps someplace else, Houston, Dallas, somewhere. that kind of meets your interests. And so the big thing here is not, when you have an internship, isn't just to spend the time and get the credit. The thing that you are most interested in is turning that into an experience that turns you into an interesting person, someone that an employer might be interested in. Does that make sense? For example, I did a couple of internships as an undergraduate. One was to coordinate, to do an assessment of a local mental health agency and to do a program analysis to find out how effective this particular part of the program was. And I was able then, when I got done, to present it to the county commission, find my results and things. The point is that that experience, because I had conducted that project, made me sort of interesting, right? What you don't want to do in an internship is go someplace and fold paper and staple and answer phones. That just doesn't make much sense, right? What you really want to do is to do a project in an internship that is both helpful to you and interesting to you and helpful to your employer. So you want some examples of what intern students have done? I had one intern student work for Parks and Recreation in Nacogdoches, and he was very interested in soccer, and he helped to design did some surveys and just helped to design some soccer fields in Nacogdoches. I had another student who was very interested in doing work in politics or in government, and she worked for a congressman, then Congressman Turner in Lufkin, and worked as a case manager for people who were having problems with Social Security. Right? And I had another intern student who worked with Health Horizons, which is the local HIV/AIDS clinic. And instead of going there and just answering phones and such things, making coffee, she actually put together a health fair. Worked with them to put together a health fair for poor people in Nacogdoches. Does that kind of give you an idea? Those experiences are much more valuable than just going there and spending time. So to the extent that you can help a potential internship placement site with a project that they can't do on their own, right? Because they don't have unlimited resources and they need as much help as they can get. If you can help them by putting together that kind of project or some sort of project, that's very helpful. So you spend about 150 hours, which amounts to about 10 hours a week over 15 weeks. And you will work on a project. You'll keep a journal, so daily entries of sort of things that you do or did. And then at the end of the semester, you'll write a reflective paper. It's not a long paper, probably no more than 5 pages or so, in which you reflect about what you did. You don't just tell me what you did, but really what's most important is that you can think about it, write about it in a way that connects it to the stuff you've learned in sociology. So, for example, if you are interested in a placement in a criminal justice, for example, in the sheriff's department or in the police department, how could you connect that experience to theories of crime, for example? I had one student actually who did an internship at the alternative school in town. It's both a discipline school, kids who get in trouble in their local campuses, and then they go there. Some students have issues that they can't go to traditional school, so they go to the alternative school. And he wrote a really interesting paper about how the discipline part of that school sort of operated as socialization for prison. Right? You see how that's kind of reflective? Right? So you dress them in uniforms, gray shirts and blue jeans, and you search them before they go to school, these disciplined kids, and you have a set routine. Sound familiar? And his idea was, hey, I know about socialization. Hey, this is socialization to prison life, right? And so the unfortunate part of that was that over the years, of course, many of those students went to prison, right? Or a lot of them anyway. Does that make sense? So that's a reflective paper that connects what you learned in class to your experience. So you just don't want to write a paper about, this is what I did. It needs to be something that is sort of creative, something that's sort of reflective and shows that you've had time to think about what you've learned in class and apply it to the real world. So that, in a nutshell, is are the expectations. Now, in terms of practically how, why this is important and what we need to do, the internships are available for sociology majors, and to get one, what you'll need to do is work with me to pick out a site location, and then I will give you a form, and we'll work together with the site placement supervisor to figure out what you will do, and then it will be signed by you, by the site placement supervisor, by me, by my chair, Dr. Zaffron, and then by our dean, and only then can you sign up, that is, can you register for the course. So all of that has to be done before, which means you don't want to wait until the last minute. And for you sociology majors, you know that you're required a field experience, right? Whether it's an archaeology field school or a study abroad or an internship. This will satisfy that requirement. So if you need one, I assume most of you probably will need one unless you do one of those other things, we should get it set up sooner rather than later. How many of you are thinking about one this summer? Okay. So if you are interested in one this summer, what we need to do is we need to have all of that paperwork figured out and submitted by the end of April or later. So be sure and get with me, and we can get that figured out and get you signed up whenever pre-registration starts, and they haven't announced that yet. We'll make sure that you get signed up and you're ready to go. Now in the summer, obviously you have less time. You don't have 15 weeks, right? So it's going to be a little bit more intensive. So generally what we do is sign you up for the 3-hour internship during summer 1, the 5-week session. And then at the end of the 5-week session, we give you a WH. We would just withhold your grade so that you can complete the hours over the second summer session. And then when you're done with it, then we give you a grade, okay? A pass fail. So it's not graded, it's a pass fail. Nice. All of you will pass. What else about this? Those are sort of the details. I will, once we get you placed and spending time, I'll want to visit with you occasionally, stop by the office, or we can talk. I will also go out to your site at least once, usually more, to actually observe you in your natural habitat as you do your internship. Unless it happens to be out in Nacogdoches, which is difficult. Do you have questions for me, Betty?
I do. I'll be an orientation leader over the summer, and so I have to have Thursdays and Fridays to do orientation.
Sure.
Will it be able to work around those? Because it's only 5 sessions.
Yeah, and you work out a schedule with your internship supervisor.
Okay.
And you don't, whatever you can work out with them is absolutely okay.
Okay.
Are the admission rates for the internship programs usually pretty high, or is it based off of previous experience? I have not had a hard time placing people in internships. These, of course, are all unpaid internships. Right. And so sometimes ones that are really sought out. For example, the Chamber of Commerce often is hard to get people placed because other programs on campus use that. Right? So it depends on where you want to go, but we'll get you placed in a place that is interesting. Now, there are a couple ways to think about where you want to be placed, too. One is you want to be placed in a position that you think you might want to do, or in a field that you might want to do. Another thing that you might do is pick one that you don't know if you're interested in, just to find out what it is they do. So I did a volunteer as an undergraduate, a volunteer assignment, sort of an internship at a nursing home. I had no idea that I would be interested in it. I had to choose either between aging and criminology, and I knew I was not interested in criminology. So I chose aging, and I went to the nursing home, and wow, I was interested in it. So I did my master's degree in the sociology of aging. Who knew I would have any idea until I did it. So that's another thing to think about. Just to pick something that you just don't know about and might be interesting. What else? We've had some really fun internships. You know, we can do all sorts of sort of social work related. Boys and Girls Club, for example. Nursing homes are always a possibility. Area councils on aging, alternative school, list goes on and on. There's a drug and alcohol prevention center here in town. I've had interns there. That is an awful intern. We have, like I said, Health Horizons, the HIV clinic is a possibility. Habitat for Humanity is definitely a possibility if you're interested in that sort of stuff. Some businesses also, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce, for example, might be interesting for you, I don't know. The city of Nacogdoches has a variety of placement possibilities. So, and I have contacts there, so we could get you set somewhere that I think would be interesting for you. How many of you are interested in sort of social welfare, social work kind of activities? Any of you? Ish, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the way I was too. I was purely a sociology major, not social work, and but I did do that for a while. Decided that I'd much rather study people than but I mean, it is something that a lot of our students do. Go out into social work. I have a former student in Dallas who works with people with developmental disabilities. She loves it, wouldn't rather do anything else. I have another former student who actually became a claims manager for Geico Insurance. So, and that's another sort of whole set of career possibilities for sociology students that people don't think about. The insurance industry isn't just selling insurance. There are claims positions and underwriting positions and statistics positions and all sorts of things. So, and since I have that background in the insurance industry, I could steer you in that direction. We have a former sociology major who was, are any of you anthropology emphasis? Okay. We have one who, he worked in the archaeology lab, and he went on to work in a crime lab for the state of Texas because he had that lab experience. So I have a psychology student who's working in our archaeology lab, and the main reason she is so she can get that lab experience, and so she can make a case to go to work in crime labs and things. So are you interested in, for example, I have possibilities in the historical sites office in the city of Nacogdoches and some of their museums and things like that.
It would be really fun. My idea is that I kind of want to write National Geographics, write ethnographies and stuff like that. But that historical sites would be cool too.
Okay. Yeah, let's think about with that. There are lots of other things that we can see. What else are you thinking? What other places? What else are you interested in?
You mentioned law firms and a civil rights lawyer that you may know.
Yeah, in fact,
that would incorporate kind of all the fields that I'm interested in.
okay.
Philosophy, political philosophy, sociology, and public administration. So.
Yeah, he's coming to talk to my minority or my race and ethnic relations class the week after spring break. So I'll get a chance to visit with him. So I'll ask him. Yeah, that'd be cool. I also know some folks who work in public defenders' offices, so which would also be fun.
I know we've talked about counseling stuff and potential working at the alternative store or something like that. Do they do that over the summer?
They didn't used to, but we'll need to check about that to be sure. It's probably a remote chance that they would have enough going on to keep you busy over the summer. Mm-hmm. Especially if you wanted to work one-on-one or or with kids. Boys and Girls Club is another possibility. Though sometimes what that ends up being, you end up being more of a babysitter.
Yeah.
It can work, but it's,
Do you have stuff like it, like a juvenile detention center, stuff like that? I don't know, it's been a while since I've been that age. So.
The closest one I know is in Corsicana, but they're shutting that one down.
Oh.
So that's a no-go.
yeah. It's also hard with juvenile justice related things that they have privacy concerns. And so they don't typically like undergraduate interns. And sometimes they'll have them. CPS, Child Protective Services, is another possibility. They a lot of times will have social work intern students, but it is possible. In fact, I had a student once who worked at Child Support Enforcement. She traced down deadbeat dads. So that's a possibility. Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like fun, but she loved it. She loved it.
Is there anything for counseling besides like the Boys and Girls Club? Because that's not the part that I'm interested in. Like,
Yeah. You're not interested in juvies maybe, or?
I'm more interested in like high school age and like somewhere around there. I just, working at the Boys and Girls Club, I know most of the time does turn into watch these kids and make sure they don't kill each other.
Yeah.
And that's not what I, like if I'm gonna do an internship, I don't wanna do something where I'm just a
Yeah, well, one
babysitter.
possibility would be, I'm involved in SFA's connection to the high school, early college high school program. Do you know about that? This is the third year, and
Just like Avid, kind of?
sort of. What it does is, this was a program started by Bill and Melinda Gates. They donated a bunch of money. And so they have these programs all over the country now. But we work together with the high school, and these freshmen in high school begin to take college classes the first fall of their freshman year in high school.
Yeah, we got one on the debate team.
Yeah, and so at 8 o'clock on Tuesday and Thursday mornings, I teach this room full of high school freshmen Nacogdoches kids, and teach them intro to sociology. So they're getting dual credit for it, college credit. And well, one of the things that's a possibility is that I'm on their site council at the high school, and they do all sorts of programming for this. And so you may find that interesting, especially since the kids that it's targeted at are first-generation college students. If you have a parent who's been to college, you do not qualify for this program. So these are first-generation college students, almost exclusively minority, though not there are some non-minority. They're typically kids who come from pretty tough backgrounds, but they are really, really fun. Some of the most insightful students I've had. So, the odd thing is I teach a traditional college-age class right afterward, Intro to Sociology, and these high school kids typically do much better. Much better. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, I can probably get you set up with some sort of internship working with Tim Mulligan at the high school about early college high school. For example, they do training programs with future students, students in 8th grade who will come up to be in early college high school, and they try to get them prepared for tests, to get into early college high school. And they work with parents. These parents they've not been to college, and they don't know how to coax their children how to be college students. So, there's not only are we teaching these students, we're also in many ways educating their parents. So, one thing I've wanted to do, and we just haven't had the time or someone to coordinate it, is to put together a sort of a mock classroom experience for the parents of these kids. So actually have them come in this room and sit down, and I'll teach them a college class and give them an overview of what their students are going to be doing so that they have an idea, because it would be the only college classroom they've ever been in. So that'd be sort of fun, something to coordinate. And sociologically, it's interesting too, right? Because what we're really talking about, Nacogdoches is a tremendously poor community, one of the poorest in the country, in fact. And so, and of course, it's increasingly over the last 20 years becoming more and more minority because white folks are simply moving out into the county. So anyway, what this early college high school program can do, thinking about it sociologically, is maybe transform the community. Right? Can you imagine if we get enough of these kids, by the time they get done with high school, they'll be juniors in college. Right? Kids who've never thought really about going to college before, their parents have never been, this can really transform the community if it lasts. So sociologically, it's interesting.
Something to dig into.
Huh?
I said that'd be something to dig into.
Yeah, yeah. And so if any of you, both of you, maybe.
Yeah, because I plan to counsel high school at least. Junior high, maybe high school, but upper age, I'd rather stick with those than the younger kids.
Yeah.
More concentrated.
The other possibility would be the drug and alcohol prevention group. I'm giving a talk to them, giving a speech to them the week after spring break. So
Is there their program in Nacogdoches?
their programs are pretty much over.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they've been studied not to work very well at all.
Yeah,
Oh, they
in
have?
fact, there's
Yeah.
been some research to
Right
show.
there.
Was it drug use is the same with kids who went through the DARE program and kids who didn't? There's
There-
absolutely zero impact.
And there've been some studies to show that actually the kids who go through it are actually more
Oh.
inclined to use drugs.
Yeah, because they feel as if they had that misinformation at first, then what of their misinformation is there on that topic?
Yeah. And so when I was in my social work role, one of the things I did was do drug and alcohol prevention in schools. And we were trained very explicitly, never, ever, ever to talk about procedures for using drugs or to show drugs or drug paraphernalia. You don't do that when you're dealing with middle schoolers in particular. Because as soon as you do, you destigmatize it. And you know how kids are. They see it and they think, wow, that's cool. Right? And so you just don't do that. And what did DARE do? Well, they did just exactly what we knew they shouldn't do. So DARE programs have pretty much gone away. Not everywhere, but largely have. But this is the drug and alcohol prevention program that's community supported. They get some grant money from various places. So how effective they are, I don't know. They try. So the HIV clinic is also, I think, an interesting one. Oh, some of the best internships I've had have been at Head Start, believe it or not.
Isn't that a little preschool kind of off of Old Town Road, Dylan?
Yeah, in fact, the woman who began that, Charlotte Stokes is her name, African-American woman who's since retired, she realized a lot of what we were just talking about with early college, high school, is that when these kids come, you're not really just dealing with the kids, you're dealing with their families, with parents and their situations too. So she said, you know, if I'm going to help these kids, I need to have an adult literacy program. So she began a program there right on the Head Start campus called Project Turnaround, which is still there, in which they tutor adults to be often the parents of these Head Start kids. They tutor them to get GEDs and things. So I've had a number of students do that, actually work one-on-one with parents in this program. Pretty cool stuff. But that's the kind of thing, I mean, she was very forward-looking in dealing with those kinds of issues. Because when you're going to deal with kids, you're not just dealing with kids, you're dealing with their parents too. So Head Start does all sorts of really interesting things. So that'd be another place we could talk about. Like, since she's retired, I'll have to go make new contacts, but I'd be glad to do that. So it's a great organization. Habitat for Humanity, like I said too, are any of you kind of interested in that stuff?
I would be interested in that as well.
Okay. Because you know, they have a Restore, do you know about that? They just moved it, in fact, down on South Street. So people bring in and donate used building materials, and then they resell them to people, and they use the money to build habitat houses. So, and I know the woman who runs it really well, so we could do that. It would be a fun place. Time we can fit it in, it would be a very good thing to do. So,
I shouldn't wait till I see you and start
yeah,
thinking.
I will. How many of you are thinking about graduate school?
Just focus on graduating.
Well, it's not too soon to think about that either. And the reason is because, again, you need to make yourself interesting. You need to make yourself someone who's compelling to not only employers, but if you're going to graduate school, you need to make your case there. Right? And so one way you do that is by doing the right things now. So if you're going to graduate school in sociology, for example, you're going to want to go someplace where they pay you to go to school, I assume, right? Do you know that they do that? I didn't pay anything for my tuition. In fact, they paid me the entire time. I went to Kansas State University, and they paid my tuition and paid me a salary. Of course, I had to work in return 14 hours a week. But that was a good deal. And the way I got it is because I was prepared when I went. So how do you get prepared? Obviously, you have relatively good grades, you take a GRE, but also you present some research at a research conference, right? Which is really, in fact, I've done this with probably 20 or so students in the past. Many of them have gone on to get funded positions at various places. And so, for example, if you want to go to graduate school, you could put together a research proposal and present something at a research conference next year. And then when it comes time to apply to graduate school, you can say, hey, I presented this research. And that means a lot. So it's not too early. Not too early. So I'm glad to work with you about the graduate school stuff too, because I've had really, really, really good success. Have any of you had Ryan Button in class? He teaches for us some. He teaches in Tyler, but he was one of my students when I went to graduate school. He and his wife both.
I've had his wife before.
Oh, Andrew? Yeah, she was one of my students, and this is exactly what we did. In fact, I have a picture of us all at a Midwest Sociological Conference meeting in Kansas City, Missouri, and there were about 10 of them, 10 students and me, and had a great time, really good time, and about half of them went off to graduate school. So, because graduate schools, again, are looking for people who are interesting and compelling, and you need to make your case. You're not going to just make it by grades and just be there. Yeah.
We actually just had a class with Dr. Azell, and somebody did a presentation that they're taking to a religions conference, and she mentioned taking students to other regional anthropological conferences. Would that be the same in the same
Exactly
vein?
the same thing.
Like presenting a paper?
Yep, exactly the same thing. I know that she has done that a lot. So does Dr. Cecil. Very good. Dr. Segedy does some too. Lots of cool things to do. Another internship possibility would be at the charter school here at SFA. So that's another possibility too, if you're interested in that. Questions?
Are there any AAAs that would be available for internships at?
I'm sorry, like what?
AAAs, aging agencies?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's one here in town, the Area Council on Aging. Yeah. And so, are you kind of interested in aging?
I don't know. I want to be, since that's my concentration. But I was thinking either like that or kind of maybe be one of those people, like a recreational kind of person, like a nursing home, like that person. That would be kind of cool.
Oh, I can get you set up right away with something like that.
That would be fun.
Oak Manor is a nursing home here in town, and they, yeah, we could do that. Did you also see that there's a new assisted living place coming to Nacogdoches?
I didn't. That's super exciting though.
Yeah, so maybe we could get connected with those folks and find something for you so you could help them do some planning for it. That'd be kind of cool.
Just the rest of your life.
What?
You could end up living next to the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Well, we've had really good luck placing our gerontology students in places where they've done internships. It's just,
I just don't want to be like the person stapling papers and.
no, and that's why when we approach a place that we have to be clear that we really want to do something for you that maybe you need help with. We want to do a project for you that helps you. We just don't want to spend time. When I did my volunteer work in a nursing home, I actually put together a coffee group so that the nursing home administrator, and I was an undergraduate, said, one of the real needs we have here is that there are these small group of men, right? So in nursing homes, only about a third or less of the residents are men, 2/3 are women, and most of the people who work there are women. And so these men don't get, they don't get to be around other men. So she said the real need we have is something for them, some sort of. So we put together. I did a coffee group every week with these men. We brought them all into one of the one of the waiting, the social areas, and we drank coffee and talked. It was the best. I mean, it was a remarkable experience for me. And so, in fact, it formed the basis of my master's thesis research a few years later. So, yeah, so some sort of, yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful thing. I met a guy who had been a nuclear engineer in the Manhattan Project, building the first atomic bomb. I interviewed a whole bunch of World War II veterans, but I also interviewed and got to meet a World War I veteran. And so he was 104 when I knew him. And I brought my little daughter, who was about 6, and I brought her in to meet him. And, he was so happy to meet her, and he looked at her and pointed at her and said, you're going to be a teacher, I can tell. And my daughter and I both looked confused, and he said, yeah, you have 2 pupils. So anyway, it was hilarious. He was really, really good guy. And so it was really one of the best experiences in my life, and it came about in a really sort of unexpected way. So, yeah. And then, like I said, it shaped my graduate, at least my master's degree, but also I went on in my PhD, one of my areas, you had to choose 2 areas, and one was aging, so the sociology of aging. And so you don't know, you just don't know. So you and I should talk, we can get that worked out.
We should.
Yeah, definitely. There are all sorts of aging-related things going on in Nacogdoches that you can be involved in. For example, I've had interns and students work on, Nacogdoches was, I think, the first county in Texas to be designated a retirement destination community. And
I heard something about that.
I worked on the committee, and some of my students did. One student went to Houston and interviewed people who looked like they were about retirement age, about where they were thinking about retirement and what things they looked for in a community to retire in. Had another student, one of the students who went to Kansas City, in fact, who interviewed older workers at local businesses, Kroger's and things, about who they were and why they worked, and those sort of things. All sorts of fun things to do. By the way, she found out that most of the people who worked, older people who worked like at Kroger's or Walmart or something, they didn't do it for the money. In fact, they had plenty of money. They didn't need the money, but they did it for the social outlet and for the connection to people. The odd thing was she speculated that people who needed the money are typically, by the time they get to be that age, they have not had good access to health care, they haven't had the best nutrition, and so they're not exactly physically able to do those sort of things. It's kind of an ironic thing. People who need money can't do it. People who don't need the money are the ones who do it. So, fun stuff.
It's fun.
Yeah. And are any of you interested in archaeology? You two sound like anthropologists. There are archaeology opportunities too. So working in the lab, or we're doing all sorts of fun things with Caddo Indian artifacts. Working with the Caddo Nation itself has been fun. So. Anything else? Well, come and talk to me. My office is right next to Dr. Cecil, right across from the sociology office. My office hours are posted. You can certainly email me too. I'm glad to email you back. But especially if you're talking about this summer, let's get together soon and get something penciled in and get the forms filled out so you can get registered and all set by the end of April. I will also say that once we get you set up in the internship for summer, I'm not going to be around much this summer, but Dr. McDonald in geography in our department will be the one who sort of supervises the internship. We'll get it set up, we'll get it figured out, but he'll be the one, if anything comes up that you need some help, he'll be the one to deal with it. And he's a good guy.
Yeah, funny guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. And also someone who's very community-minded, knows a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
spring break.